I'm joined here in the studio now with actor, writer and director Declan Gorman. Good morning, Declan. How are you?
Morning, David. I'm very well, thanks.
Primarily, we're here to talk about an upcoming production in An Táin on Thursday, May 28, with the intriguing title of 1980-something.
1980-something, yes.
I believe autobiographical.
It is indeed autobiographical. So I turned 21 in 1981, and I arrived in Munich. Like a lot of my generation at the time, I emigrated for work and for, I suppose in some regard, for mental health reasons. Just I had to get out, I had to get away. And I spent I spent the first few years of the 1980s in West Germany. But then in 1984, I just was possessed by the desire to come back and start a new life in Ireland. Sort of came back against the tide of emigration. I came back when everybody else was leaving.
The height of that first recession.
The height of
the ongoing recession that it was.
Of that particular recession. So I came back and I started into a life in the theatre at that time. And also, not just in the theatre, but in sort of activism and human rights and protest politics and all of that ferment that was around in the 1980s. And so the play is a one-man performance that starts out with the lunacy and chaos of being a young lad arriving in Germany without a shilling in my pocket, without a clue, without a word of the language, just kind of hoping that things would work out. And bizarrely, they tended to do so. And then just gradually kind of beginning to make sense of the world and deciding then that I needed to come back home and be in Ireland. So the second half of the show was set mainly in Dublin, although I do go back to Berlin at one point for a short while. And there's a brief sojourn in North Africa as well. So it covers half the Northern Hemisphere and 10 years of life in a 100-minute performance.
Coming back to Ireland in the 1980s, as you said, there wouldn't be a lot to come back to. And we had our own, well, it was a decade of Charlie Haughey.
It was a time.
The aftermath of the hunger strikes.
Yes. Yeah. With the hunger strikes, with Charlie Haughey internationally, we had apartheid, we had the British miners' strike. It was a really dispiriting time. But I think when you're young, you take those knocks.
Yes.
You're less inclined to worry about them. I see a lot of parallels in the world we're living in now, and I see how the young people are just getting on with. They're, trying to make the world a better place. And it gives me great hope and encouragement because I think there were times when we thought like that things would never get better. But we just went out and we made our art and we made our theatre and we had all these super great rock bands coming out at the time. And we were just doing our own thing and it was a time of great fun. And your 20s should be a time of great fun.
It's always the older people who seem to mess it up.
Well, indeed, it is. Or at least some of them. Yeah, some of them anyway.
I'm intrigued, Declan, with the release. Tell me what happened in Berlin that you were told to run.
Well, actually, the run thing, which is sort of coming up a lot in the publicity, that was before Berlin. That was in Munich.
Sorry.
And it sounds like a great thriller, but
it does.
And it sort of was for a moment. But I woke up in a railway station, actually in an underground U-Bahn station, so a subway station in Munich, and a woman was waking me and saying, you need to run. And the reason was that there was actually armed police at the time. They were called, the nickname for them were the Black Sheriffs, and their job was to patrol. They were kind of a private security firm with guns, and they were patrolling the underground railway network for vagrants and homeless people. You weren't allowed to sleep in it. So it was no more dangerous than that. I would have been hunted out and possibly arrested for being vagrant because I had nowhere to sleep. I was actually briefly homeless. So this woman warned me that the police were coming, and that was the start of an extraordinary adventure because I got to know her. And so the play kind of unfolds. The first half of the play is about how that friendship, that relationship actually developed, and the most bizarre beginning of a relationship, I think, to have happened in Europe that year. So she rescued me from these kind of gun-toting sheriff policemen, and she took me to her home, and the rest then was love and life and history. Yeah.
Well, there you go. There's
half the play given away now. Don't bother coming, folks.
No, not at all. When you read the opening line, and again, it depends what you remember from the decade that you're discussing.
Yes.
But certainly anywhere in Germany, particularly either side of the wall in the 1980s, is visions of a Cold War thriller.
Oh, absolutely. And the play does go in and out of that a little bit. The wall didn't come down actually until I think 1990, but it looms large in the story, and in fact later on I go back to West Berlin in the second half of the play. There is a chronology in the story. It does begin in 81 and it ends in 1990 on a good day when I get my first ever paycheck. There's the ending given away now, so don't bother coming at all, folks. But it's and there is, the politics is there all the way through the story, but it's not the dominant thing. It's very much a personal story, and it's very funny. I mean, my unfortunately my life was like just a series of chaotic events, and so it's about the question of like, do you learn, and what do you learn? Sometimes I learn an awful lot from my chaotic mistakes, but I don't necessarily learn the right thing, but I learn something helpful and useful, and that gets me through the next chaos. So that's been the story of my entire life, actually, right up until this day, like trying to get here to the radio station.
At the end of it all, it works out.
At the end of it all, it works out, and there's always something to celebrate and something joyful at the end of it. And I think that's what the play is about. It's kind of offering a little bit of hope. It's kind of saying, bad as things are right now, they looked terrible in the 80s as well, and there was kind of an almost sense of hopelessness sometimes, but
yes.
but we kept finding the little sort of sparks of hope and turning them into something beautiful, and that really worked because more and more people just kind of kept going, So it's a kind of an antidote to depression. I think it's an antidote to worry. Just get out for a night into the theatre and watch this hilarious story. I know I wrote it and I perform it, but it is very funny.
Do you think, just from a personal viewpoint, that somehow the world has managed to turn itself back 40 years? Because a lot of the problems in the 1980s don't seem to have come back. The standoff and the superpowers and war and breakup of Europe and all those things, it all seems to be happening again.
It does seem to be happening again, and like you could let yourself despair. I am quite worried about how some people, even in Ireland now, are kind of making the great mistake of turning on their neighbours, turning on migrants and that sort of thing, where the real problems are exactly where you just named them. It's the superpowers, it's the big money. Follow the money, and it was the same in the 1980s, and it is resurgent right now. That bad energy in the world that is frightening people and turning them against one another. Back in the 80s, we were turned in on ourselves in Ireland. We had a big war going on. Nobody in Dundalk needs a lecture on that. It was a very difficult time, but we kept on. I think at community level and at local level and in the arts and so on, people just kept on believing that there was something better to fight for, and we kept on fighting for it, and we did, and we got there, and now it's slipping away again, but there's a young generation. I have a fabulous young person called Ash Dawes, who's actually from New Zealand, living in Ireland, working with me, travelling on the tour as a lighting technician, and Ash is absolutely this just remarkable person, just getting on with changing the world in a quiet way, lighting shows and directing plays and so on. So that cycle, it really excites me to be working with somebody at that age again. I should mention also the movement coach is Fiona Keenan O'Brien, who's actually very well known here in Dundalk. She's from just across the county line in Monaghan, but she's been doing a lot of work here with Quintessence. She's been a superb asset to the team, and Dylan Connolly as well. And my director, he's a great guy, Jerry Lee. So I have a great team around me.
The pressure of maintaining an audience on your own for that length of time, it must be challenging.
It's challenging. It's challenging. It's gotten easier over the month, with the tour on the road. So I think I opened in Monaghan Town, and I literally had that's where I grew up, in Monaghan Town. My people are from Dundalk, but I grew up in Monaghan, and it was terrifying. It was actually, but I've done one-man shows before, but this one is a little bit longer, and of course it's much more personal, and it's also very physical. I mean, obviously anybody doing the maths, if I was 21 in 1981, suffice to say that I'm over 60 now, and well over 60, but I'm dancing and jumping around the stage like a hare. I mean, it's just amazing. It's been so good for me, like doing this show, yeah. Like just finding my fitness again, and just giving me real purpose and going ahead. There's a lot of people who are kind of my age and slightly younger and slightly older who are coming to the show because they're on this kind of nostalgic trip.
Yes.
And I think what they're liking about it is that it's the truth of the 1980s. It's not a Hollywood nostalgia. There's no big pink fluffy dresses or anything like that. It's very much the time of the nitty-gritty street protest, like trying to make ends meet, people not having enough money to pay the rent, and the Dole queue is in there, and all of those places that a lot of people remember, but they're enjoying that. But also I think a younger generation are coming along, like we have a large group coming, I'm thrilled to say, from the Mad Youth Theatre in Dundalk here, coming along to see the show at An Táin. And I think those young people who are in their late teens and even early 20s are going to get an awful lot out of it, because there's so much that, to use the word that young people are using, there's so much in the 1980s story that is relatable. It's relatable for young people now.
Yes, I think most people, Declan, certainly when I think of the 1980s, I have to pinch myself that it's actually 40 years ago and not 10 years ago.
Precisely, yes. Yeah.
That's 1980 something, which is on An Táin Arts Centre on Thursday, May 28th. And a big thanks to Declan Gorman. Good luck with it. It sounds wonderful.
Thank you, David.
I'm sure it'll be a resounding success, and we hope we get the opportunity to speak to you again on other projects. Thank you.
Very good, David. Thank you.